So hello guys, welcome back to the channel and we are up with another Salesforce mock interview. So without any delay, let's get started.
Hi. I am having 5 years of experience, and earlier my experience is in mainframe testing, and rest experience is in Salesforce.
Okay,
Thank you.
so what are your expertise areas in Salesforce when I say it is admin or it is development?
I have worked both on admin as well as development. I have worked on triggers in developer role, triggers and Apex classes and Visual Force pages, and I have also worked on Lightning Web Components.
Okay, so you are familiar with Lightning Web Component as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So what I will do is I'll basically start from the very basic admin part
Okay.
and then I will move to the development part.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
from the admin part, what are the different types of relationships available in Salesforce?
Salesforce basically have three types of relationship. One is one to many, many to many, and one is self relationship. In many to many relationship, we have master detail and lookup relationship. In master detail relationship, record is like having strong bonding with the detail object, and it follows the cascade delete methodology. Like if the parent record gets deleted, then the child objects records will automatically get deleted. But in the case of lookup, relation is very loosely bounded. Like if it doesn't matter, like if you are deleting the records of parent, then detailed relationship are still present. And one is also the junction object, in that we have like two master objects on custom two custom objects, and they have master detail relationship.
Okay, good. So have you
Mm.
heard about self relationship? And there is like two more relationships. We have indirect and external lookup relationship.
Yeah, in one is in self relationship. Like if the account is there and the account wants to look up on its own field, then we can have those relationship. We can put look up relationship in that case. Then that will be called as a self relationship, like a relationship on the same object.
Okay, so what are the exact like difference you have already told about lookup and relationship,
Mm.
lookup and master, but the difference I was looking in lookup and master is in terms of security. What is the difference?
Okay. In the case of master detail relationship, like the child records will get automatically deleted if parent is deleted in the case of master detail and master object, and also child record will inherit all the security models of the parent in case of master detail relationship. But in the case of lookup, it will not be the case. And also there is no cascade delete in the case of lookup. So like they are just independent. There will be, like if master objects security model is not followed for the child object in the case of lookup relationship.
Mhm. Okay, so in case of junction object, which master object it is going to inherit the security from? Because in junction object we know that there are two custom like master detail relationship. So which object security will be inherited from the parent? Like which parent will be acting as a primary parent for that object?
Uh, I'm not very sure on this, but I think the parent which has uh, mm, which is the main object, I guess, in that case, from that
hmm
object.
yes,
Mm,
how we will you are right, like main means primary, but how we will identify which is the primary object?
um, primary object, like if there will be the related list on the related records field on the in the case of detail object.
hmm
So the
But
another
it,
object
it
will be the master one.
it will be under both the masters, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so basically here, how we identify like which account is a parent account, what we have to do is we have like whatever the field we are creating very first, suppose that we have got a junction object where I'm creating the first field as a first parent, then that is going to act as a primary object, and that primary object will give all the security to the child.
Okay.
So if you have
Okay.
two parent A and B, and I'm
Mhm.
creating a field with the parent B, like the first
Mhm.
field as a parent B and then the second field as a parent A, then parent B is going to act as a primary here.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So what are the different types of sharing rules available in Salesforce?
Sharing rules, like basically there is a model like firstly uh, access is given through the OWDs, like sorry, through the profiles. Like if we want to have the access on object and its fields, then the access is given through the profiles and permission sets. But also, if in the case of records, if you want to have the access, in that case, we have sharing rules. We have OWD. We have role hierarchy, manual sharing.
Hmm. So how many types of sharing rules are there?
Sharing rules we have sharing to the public groups, queues, and
That's correct. What I'm
mhm,
saying is that when we create sharing rule, right?
mhm.
When we create, then what are the different types? Like I was basically looking for owner based and criteria based.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
basically there are three types. One is owner based, and there is criteria based, and there is
Mhm.
one more which is available, or we can say that which made available by Salesforce when you enable digital experience in your Salesforce, which is formerly known as communities. Okay,
Okay.
so basically one
Okay.
is criteria based, one is owner based, one is criteria based for guest user.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Got it. Yeah.
so when sharing a record through sharing rules, what are the various options to whom we can share a record?
We can share the records to through OWDs to like the entire users in the organization. If we want, if we are
Hmm.
giving access as public read, right? And we can also give the access through to the roles, to the through the hierarchy, checking the option as grant access through hierarchies, and the senior person will get the access through roles, and we can also give access um, to other users like. um, Yeah, I think that is enough. Like we can have give the access to the roles and also through the uh, OWDs to the users and through the sharing rules we can have in public to the groups and the queues. Mm. And if we want to share to the particular record we want to share, then we can also share that to the manual sharing to the particular user.
Hmm. So what will be the criteria where you will go with the manual sharing?
Like if the single record is to be shared in that case.
Hmm. Any scenario where
Single.
you have used this?
I'm not used this, but I think like if in the case of field, if you want to share or some in a record, if there is a field, we can share with the manual sharing. And yes, and if a particular record we want to share, in that case, manual sharing is okay.
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, if you wanted to share a record to a particular user, or there are some cases when you are going on a leave and you want your colleague to have a look on your records that you are working on, you can have a manual setting and then you can share. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So there is one more. I'll say that there is one more scenario here.
Mhm.
Can we share a record to a particular user using sharing rules?
Particular user.
Yeah.
Yes.
How we can do that?
Only record we are sharing. Firstly, we have to give the access to the object, in that case, to profiles or permission sets. And then either we can create the sharing rule for that. We can give through owner based sharing rule, we can give the access.
Okay. So can we select the user while sharing a record using sharing rule, or is there any way that we have to follow in order to share?
Come again?
So can we directly select a user from the sharing rule while sharing, or we have to follow an other way, like we have to use some other components here and then only we can share?
We can create a sharing rule and then we can add the users in that, and it can be shared with them. Or either in the case of permission sets, we can create the permission set and we for which object like we want, like, and what record, what things are to be shared, and then we can share with that user.
Okay, cool. So basically, in order to share or record using a sharing rule to a particular user, what we have to do is first we have to kind of add that user into a public group, then use that public group in the sharing rule, because in sharing rule there is no option to select a user.
Yeah, in the public groups we can add. Even in the public queues, I guess.
In even public queue we can add the user.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So tell me a scenario where you have been asked to achieve a scenario using customization, and you have done this. What was the scenario and how did you achieve it without writing a code?
Which sharing rule?
No, using automation tool basically.
I didn't get the question. Like, which requirement?
Okay, what I'm saying is that tell me a scenario where you achieved a requirement using any automation tool.
Okay. Like in the case of updating the field, I used workflow instead of going for process builder. Instead of going for triggers and all, I did that through workflow.
Okay, so any other like what are the various automation tool that Salesforce provides, and what are the difference between each, and which is the most powerful among all of them?
Okay, like in coming to the automation tools, we have process builders, we have workflow rules, and we also have flows. And the basically the difference is main difference is like process builder allows many things that can be done, like calling, updating the records, creating the records. Then, but in the main difference between process builder and workflow is that we can't update the child records in the case of process builder, in the case of workflow rules. But through the process builder, we can achieve that, and also the um, we can control the flow in the case of process builder, like there are steps. Okay, but in the case of workflow there is no control over the steps, like how it will execute. And also I have not used the flows, but basically all the things can be achieved, like creating the records, updating, deleting, and getting the fetching the records can be achieved in the flows. And also like through flows can be scheduled for the particular time, like as we use for we can as we schedule the classes in the batch apex and queueable apex, and all those feature classes are scheduled in the same way. Through the flows, classes can be scheduled at particular time, and also through the flows, callouts can be made to the external services.
Good. So okay, let's say that I have a scenario here. Okay. um, I have a visual force page, or let's say that I have a lightning component or a aura component. That can be anything with the UI, where in the UI I have got 3-4 things. One is like case subject, case description, case origin, and there is one email which is saying that case follow-up email, case follow-up date time. Okay,
Okay.
that is a date time field basically. So when user click on save button, what I want to have is I want to save a case record, and then I wanted to send an email on the date which was entered into the UI component. So how you will do this using customization?
Email has to be sent to the user, right?
Yes, to the case owner, email has to be sent, but on the same date which it was there in the UI. So how you will do this using not customization, basically using the out of box functionality?
That can be done through the process builder. Like every time, we can send the emails, create the template of email, and we can like send emails through the process builder. And the criteria was when the record is like what you said.
When the record is created, it should send an email based on the date of the whatever
Yeah,
the date has
we
been
can.
entered.
Every time the record is created, and at the time of record is created, we can create the process builder for that criteria, and we can like call like schedule an action like what to say call sending an email, and we can have the condition set in that, like if the date is this to date is set as today, in that case send the email to the user. We
Okay,
can
got it.
call email
So
template in that process builder.
yeah. So basically, there is one like the process that you tell was completely perfect.
Mhm.
There is one thing that done what we can say that modification needed is instead of checking the date enter is equals to today, what we need to do is we need to schedule an action on
Mhm.
the date, whatever the
Mhm.
date is there on that field. So we don't need to check
Okay.
and all. So it will automatically schedule that action for that date. Okay.
Okay, that can be done through process builder, right? You know?
Yeah. Even you
Okay,
can use either process builder or workflow rule. Any
workflow rule.
solution will
Yes.
work.
But what will be better, process builder, right, or workflow? Because
So
can we
if
control through workflow that all actions?
we can do here, like workflow will also work because there is only one criteria. There are no other criterias.
Mhm.
But by seeing at Salesforce recent releases or Salesforce recent updates, the best
Mhm.
solution can be either process builder or flow builder,
Mhm.
because that's what Salesforce are promoting more and more these days. Because these both are coming as a part of Lightning UI, and we can consider these two as a part of Salesforce Lightning. So that's why
Okay.
if there is anything which is coming in our way, we should always try to resolve either using flow or process builder.
Okay.
Instead, like we should only go for the workflow nowadays if we have to send an outbound message. Otherwise, we should be doing all these things uh, either using process builder or a workflow. I'm sorry, a
Mhm.
flow builder.
True. Oh, yes. And we
Okay.
can also obtain this functionality like using schedule triggered records in the flows, right?
Yes, exactly.
Schedule triggered flows. Yeah, that will work,
Yeah.
right? That
Yep, that will work. Okay. So there is one scenario again. Suppose that I have a workflow rule on opportunity. Okay.
will.
Which is updating the let's say that not on opportunity, it is basically on account which is updating the industry to technology. Okay.
Mhm.
Every time an account is created, it is updating the industry to technology.
Okay.
And there is one validation rule running on the account which is checking the industry field and saying if technology is like industry is equal to technology, it is showing the validation error.
Okay.
So what will happen if a user comes and creates a new account without
Mhm.
having the technology in the industry field?
In that case, like workflow rule will fire. Okay,
Hmm.
like it will update the field, whatever functionality workflow rule is doing. In that case, workflow rule will be the final step taken by the record.
Okay, and what about the validation rule?
It will not come into the picture in that case because workflow rule will be the last action in the case of, because like there is execution criteria, so according to the flow, like workflow rule will fire, and only after workflow rule, if there are before and after triggers, that will fire. But workflow in the case of validation, workflow rule is the final one. Am I wrong
Okay.
or correct?
No, you're right. You're perfectly right. So that's here the order of execution comes into the picture.
But I told, is it the fine one? Like as per I what I understood, like workflow rules will after workflow rules only before and after triggers will fire, but validation rules and all will only fire once when in the starting. Is it right?
Yeah, in case of workflow rule, it is correct. And then my next question was, if I replace my workflow rule with the process builder, then what will happen?
Same process builder will fire
Okay, so process builder will file.
at
Then
the end. Yeah.
in that case, will validation rule run or not?
No, 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 no. Validation rule will be overlapped. Like process builder will run, but not validation rule. It will not fire.
Okay, so basically in this case, when we replace process builder with the workflow rule, and no, we replace workflow with process, or we replace workflow with trigger, both the cases validation rule will execute. So that's the key here. What happens whenever we are trying to execute a workflow rule, I'm sorry, we are trying to update any record from process builder, it does executes the validation rules as
Okay. Okay. Like then that criteria like of following like the hierarchy that will not come into the picture. Like process builder will fire after the workflow rules, but
well.
validation
Yes,
rules
like
will fire again.
first it will fire the validation rule. It will say that industry is not technology.
Hmm.
It will go ahead and then it will execute your process builder, and then once the process builder will update the field, it will again check the validation rule, and that time it will find the industry as a technology and it will throw the error.
Okay. And similar with the process with the trigger also, no? Right?
Yeah, similar with the trigger.
Okay. Only in the case of this workflow rule, this will be the criteria. Like it will not fire, but for okay, both of them. So we have. Do we need to set some criteria in the trigger and process builder that it should check validation rule, or it will automatically fire? There
No,
is
we don't
no
need to,
need.
because we at the end we don't want to. Yeah, there is no need, because at the end we want, what we want is, we want that there should not be any dirty data in our Salesforce instance. So we want the user to want. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So what is difference between freezing a user and deactivating a user?
Actually, in Salesforce, there is no option for deleting the user. We can deactivate them,
Mm-hmm.
or we can freeze the user so that if some user has left the company, in that case we can freeze them. That user should not be able to access the uh, Salesforce codes.
Okay. So what's the difference between freezing a user and deactivating a user?
Deactivating user is like still the user is present in the like we want to deactivate that person, and but in the case of freezing, like it is like we can freeze the user if the user has left, and its records can be I guess if I'm not wrong, its records can be transferred to another user who can look after if the user has left.
Mm-hmm. In both the
Is it
cases we
right?
can transfer. Yeah, in both the
Okay.
cases we can transfer the records, because whenever we are transferring a record to the user who is active, we will be able to transfer. But what
Okay.
happens if we freeze? Even if we freeze or if we deactivate a user, both the cases user will not be able to log in. But
Mhm.
what in case of freeze, the license will still be occupying. There will be one license which will still be occupying by that user who has been frozen. But
Okay.
if we deactivate one user, we will free up one license, and then we can create one more user using that license.
Okay, and records can be shared, like the person who
Yeah,
has.
record can be
Okay.
transferred. And in
Mhm.
case of a user who is inactive, if we wanted to create a record as the owner of inactive user, we'll get the error. But in
Mhm.
case of freeze, if we create any record or if we transfer a record to the user who is frozen, we'll not get
Mhm.
any error. That will be transferred.
Okay. Okay, license is transferred basically, right?
Yeah, license and
Okay.
records are transferred. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So suppose that there is do you know that we can also add the login IP ranges at a profile level?
No, I've just heard about it. No idea.
Okay, so basically we can add the login IP ranges at a profile level as well, by going
Okay.
to the network access.
Okay.
So the question is, suppose that I have added login IP ranges at a profile label, which is saying whatever the login IP I have given over there. Okay.
Mhm.
And then there is one user who are trying to log in into the Salesforce outside of that login IP, which has been set at the profile label. So what will happen?
Uh, okay, login IP, and that user will not be able to log in, I guess, because that limit is set. Like these IP addresses should be not allowed to access.
Yep, correct. You're right. So now let's replace that profile IP, like forgot on that part. Now we have got a new question here. I have added some IPs at a network access label. Okay.
Mhm.
Now user is trying to access outside from the IP. We can say that outside from the whitelisted IPs. So what will
Okay.
happen this time?
Yeah. In that case, also, I think user will not be able to access
Are you sure?
whitelisted IPs. User is having the range in that IPs or not?
No, no. User is trying to log in outside of the IP which has been whitelisted at network access level.
Oh, I think, yeah, I just confused with blacklist. Yeah, I think in that case, a user has user will get access to login, because just like it is particularly mentioned, like these particular ranges of IPs should have access.
But user is trying to log in outside of those IP ranges.
No, in that case.
Okay. So basically, when the user is trying to log in outside of the IP range who are added into the profile, then user will not get access. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if user is trying to log in outside the IP ranges which are added into the network access, then user will be able to get the access. But before that, user have to verify their identity, either using the message at their mobile phone or using the code which has been sent to their emails.
Okay. Okay, fine. Got it.
Got it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are the different types of reports available in Salesforce?
It's summary reports, tabular, metrics, and joint reports.
Okay. So you said that in the deployment you have used change sets and migration tool like Ant. So what the
Yes.
difference you have felt between these two?
Basically, I've worked mainly on this Ant tool, and in the case of Ant, I've not worked much on change sets. So if there are destructive changes, we can roll back into the developer or like if we deployed something that was not required, that destructive changes can be rolled back, and also we can validate. We can check validate is just true, and we only those particular and in the, while deploying it will be all the if suppose we are deploying classes and triggers, and we kept that check value as true, then they will be validated, and when we are going to deploy them, then just one day before we can deploy, so that it will reduce the burden, like no, there is no need to validate and then deploy the changes. So before only we can keep them validated, and then we can just and just deploy them. So,
Okay. So basically the difference that you have told is like in change set, we have to, if you wanted to roll back, we have to again deploy. And in Ant, you already said we can deploy that. Okay. I'm sorry, roll
and
back that.
also one thing is that there are 3-4 options, like run specified tests, run local tests, and no test and all,
Yeah,
which is there
those.
in the case of change set, but not in the case of.
Yeah, you can have that in Ant as well. You can specify the run test level.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can specify it both, like either change set or what we say Apache Ant. And there
Yeah.
are the two main differences. One, we cannot deploy the destructive changes using change set,
Yes.
and the other is that we cannot deploy the profiles using the change set.
Okay.
So if you have to do this, that's why companies try to adopt some other methodology for deployment, like we have got Apache and Salesforce DX or AutoRabbit, Flowsum, or Copado. There are mainly tools which are available. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So now we'll move forward to the development side,
Okay.
and I'll start from the very basic concepts. What are the various access modifiers are available in Salesforce?
We have public, global, private, protected, abstract. Yeah, and
Okay. Cool. So suppose that if I wanted to extend my class, I wanted the other user to extend my class, how I can do that?
we have to use virtual keyword in that case, and by using virtual keyword, that class can be extended, and yeah,
Okay, cool. So what I was saying that,
and also the method which we want to inherit in the another class, that should also be kept as that should also be placed with virtual in the class,
okay. And if I
in the
wanted to
method.
override a method, how I can do that?
Um, we have to firstly keep the in the main class, we have to keep the virtual keyword. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and in the case of child class, we have to keep like extends and the end, extends then class name. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then in the method with the it's like keeping the with the return type, we have to also place override keyword for the
Yep,
method.
yep, exactly. That's how we do.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the difference between method overloading and overriding? Overloading basically and overriding.
A method overloading basically is like in the same class. If I have declared one class, in that one method is there, I have passed a parameter. Okay, but in the same class, if I am using I am passing additional parameters, then with the same method name, that class becomes method overloading. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and in the case of method overriding, I have to use like inheritance methodology. Like I have to first keep the virtual keyword, then extends in the case of child class. Then it will then keep placing the keyword like override with the method.
Mm-hmm.
That
Okay.
class can
So
be override.
so basically, in case of override, parent-child relationship is required.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what are the different types of Apex trigger in Salesforce?
We have various events on which trigger fire, like before events and after events, then delete events and undelete after undelete.
Oh yeah, these are context variable. I'm talking about the types. What are the types?
Um, Types as in like
Mhm. So basically, we have two types. One is before and after.
okay, that okay,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
before and
So
after.
can I make a call out from an Apex trigger?
Yeah, I've not worked
Uh,
actually on this web services,
okay, no, sis. So I'll not go that part. So
but
basically,
I think we can.
the answer is yes. But to make that call out from the trigger, we have to take the help from a feature method.
Yes, and we also make the callouts in Apex classes using future method. So is it required to give call out through triggers, or we can just make a call out through the web through just the Apex class?
Um, it does required based on what it is required, like basically I'll say based on the requirement where you wanted to have, like sometimes you wanted to call out from the feature method, sometimes you wanted to use some other ways like queuable or batch apex,
Mhm.
and but when you are trying to call from an apex trigger, it is mandated to have either feature or queuable.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, either call a feature method or a queuable interface.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, what is a feature method?
Future method is basically it follows asynchronous approach. If basically it's used in the callouts, and also when there is mixed PML operations for the setup and non-setup objects. We have users and permission sets. All permissions are given through the setup object, and another objects, like if we are going to insert counts and contacts together, that in that case that cannot be done together. So for that purpose, we keep some portion to run in future context and another to run normally.
Okay. So what are the different interfaces you have used in batch Apex?
Database.batchable and stateful
Okay.
database dot
And
stateful. Yeah.
okay. So what is the use of stateful interface?
Stateful basically gives the present state of the batch class. If we want to get how many number of records are processed, and basically the status of batch class which we store in the database dot batchable context, which stores the ID of the batch class which is running. So to just see view what is going on in the batch class, like how many records are processed and how many records are failing, and for that database stateful is there.
Mhm. So basically, it is for maintaining the state of the variables, not the class. Okay.
Okay.
So if someone is asking like what is, then you have to say it is to maintain the state of the variables across all three methods. Okay.
Okay. Like functionality is same, like it is used to
Yeah.
capture what is going on. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, it is in order to as I said, it is for maintaining the state of the variables. So suppose that if you wanted to pass the value from one method to another method for the same variables, as you said, it is for counting the number of records has been processed in the finish method, you can use a database.stateful. Okay.
Okay.
Because if you don't use database.stateful, and whatever the value you set in the finish method, in the execute method, will get reset in the finish method. If you are using
Okay.
database.stateful, then only whatever the value you set for a variable inside execute method, it will persist till finish method as well.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So that's about database.stateful interface. So do you know, as you said that we cannot delete the user, can we write a trigger on a user where the context is before delete and after delete?
Yeah. Sorry, lost you in between.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that as you
Mhm.
said, we cannot delete a user in Salesforce.
Mhm.
So can I write a trigger on user where I'm saying the context is either before delete or before insert?
Okay. So I lost in between, but you said we want to delete that user
No, we
through
don't
Apex
want to
trigger,
delete the
right?
user. No, we don't want to delete the user because we
Mm-hmm.
cannot delete a user, right?
Yes. Yes.
What
Yeah.
I'm saying that, can I create a trigger on user where the context is before delete?
Uh, yeah, we can use before delete.
Are you sure? Because we cannot delete the user.
If we want to process some if we want to throw something error, like if person wants to delete the record, delete the user by mistake, then if we want to show the some error on the screen, in that case we can use before delete.
But we don't have that delete button on user, right?
Yeah, but yeah, got it.
Okay. So basically, your answer was correct. We can
Mhm.
we can write a trigger on the delete before delete
Mhm.
operation. It will not throw any error, but even there is no possibility. If you try to delete a user even from the trigger, it will Salesforce itself will give the error. Your trigger has to do nothing with it, but you can write a trigger. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay, that was about the trigger. Mm, okay. So what is the difference between SOQL and SOSL?
SOQL basically it returns list of records, and SOSL will return the list of records. And SOQL basically, like if you want to fetch the records of particular objects, and not particular sorry record, like if you want to um, uh, if we want to select some fields and from the object, and in that case we can use SOQL. And the SOQL queries we can insert in the data using DML operation. And so SOSL is just for searching. If you want, like it should return all the fields with the specific value, it will just return the results. And so
Okay.
SOQL we use mainly in our Apex classes and all to perform the DML operation to fetch
Uh,
records.
can we use SOSL in our class as well?
Yeah, SOSL can also be used.
Okay, cool. What are the best practices for writing on Apex trigger and test classes?
And for the Apex trigger, there should be, like, it should be meaningless Apex triggers. They should only call the Apex classes which you want to like perform the action. Apex classes and along with Apex method, and there should be only one trigger per object. And when we are deploying, we should check like if the particular if trigger is meeting the criteria, like if it is giving some code coverage after if after we are writing tests on this trigger, like it should give minimum coverage. And in the case of test classes, we have to use test setup methods, okay, or either use test factory classes or test utils to prepare the data and then refer them in the test classes, and use system.assert conditions to check whether like expectation and actual conditions are meeting or not, and testing for negative and positive records as well, and try for both single records and for the multiple records to process using lists in the test classes. And also, like if there is requirement, and also test setup, in the test setup if we are using, then we have to declare some test methods using at the rate of is test, which is there now. And testing for the bulk records is preferable when we are using test classes. And also we can use static resources in test classes if you want to process.
Cool. So what is the difference between with sharing and without sharing class?
With sharing is like if you want to run in the system mode, sorry, in the user context, like if you want that sharing rules and sharing settings of the user is should come into the picture. In that case, we write with sharing keyword. But without sharing, there is no need to write. But like if there is no keyword written, like without sharing, it will automatically run in the system mode. Then there is no need, like any like users permission sets and all are not into the picture in that case.
Okay, cool. So in case of Lightning Web Components, what are the different decorators?
We have track decorators, API, and wire. Track is now just for not for the primitive data, but for the non-primitive data, like for objects and arrays. If you want to fetch if you want to bind in the templates, HTML templates, then we can use track. And API is for exposing the JavaScript publicly, like exposing the Lightning Web Component publicly. Like if I want to access my child record, child component in the parent component, then I should decorate that with the target of API. And buyer, basically, if you want to fetch something from the Salesforce itself, then we can pass in the buyer, and we use buyer adapters and buyer configuration for that.
Okay, so suppose that I have a component here. One component I can say parent. Okay.
Okay.
And then I have got two components, child1 and child2.
Mm.
Okay. Now I wanted to establish a communication between child1 and child2. How we can do
Okay.
that?
Okay. We can firstly through the kebab case, we can write the we are following the communication between two childs or just with the parent and child with the three
With the
of
two
them.
siblings. With the two siblings.
Okay. In that case, I think PubSub can be there. PubSub or Lightning Message services we can use. We can
Okay.
write
And
Lightning Message service, and then we can one class can subscribe and one class can publish the message.
okay. And if I don't want to use any of these, either PubSub or what I'll say LMS, what the where other option I do have?
Uh, then in that case, but I think we can fetch those child components in the parent class using kebab case, and then we can pass the values to both of them. And at the slots, I guess. Will that be?
So your answer is partially correct here. Okay.
Mhm.
So what we need to do here is first we have to establish an event communication between child1 to parent. Okay.
Yeah.
And then in the parent in our handler method, what we will do is we will get the data, whatever data we are getting from the child,
Mhm.
and then we will call the child method use from the parent, and the
Okay.
method in the child that will be API method. Okay.
Yeah. Got that. Got that. Firstly, from child to parent using custom events. Like we have to dispatch the event, then parent will uh, like uh, uh, like it will
Yeah, parent will
catch
call the
that
child.
event. Yeah, parent will call the child, and that in HTML we can bind that with using kebab case with another child component.
Yeah, even we can send the data while calling API function.
Yeah,
Okay.
got it.
And the
Yes.
reason why we don't want to use this PubSub or LMS, because PubSub and LMS might be listening by some other users as other components as well, and there are uh, possibilities the data can reach. Okay. And the
Okay.
other part is also we don't want to compromise with the performance of our components.
Okay. So we don't use these Paksha and Lightning Message Services modules to maximum.
If we can do this using events, we don't use LMS and all.
Like if
Okay.
there are
Because
more than two components, like more than two child components, then same way.
in a similar way, if
Oh,
unless the components are not, like if the components are not related with each other, then definitely you will go with LMS instead of going with that what we say that PubSub, because LMS is a
mhm.
part of Salesforce Lightning and that is a standard one. So we'll go
Yes.
with that. We'll not use PubSub. Okay.
Okay.
So yep. And that was about it. So what are the various lifecycle hook methods in LWC?
Like from firstly, we have mount. There is mounting phase. Okay, in that
Mm-hmm.
case, firstly there is constructor which will be called, and then there is connected callback. Okay, after connected callback, it will check if there are if there is a child component. Then if it is there, then it will execute the constructor of the child component, connected callback of child component, then rendered callback of child. Then it will come to the parent's rendered callback, which will be the last one. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so which will execute first in this scenario? So the scenario which will execute first, either wire method or connected callback?
Connected callback. One
Okay,
second. Yes, connected callback.
okay, you're right. So and if I replace connected callback with rendered callback, then which will execute first, rendered callback or wire method?
Why? Because properties will come into the picture. If it will check for the properties. If it is there, then it will call the rendered callback.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what if I wanted to dynamically create the component? Is it available in LWC?
No, I don't know about it.
Okay, so basically it is
Dynamic load
not,
calling. Mhm.
yeah, dynamic runtime. We have in Aura, we have $a.create component where we can create a component at the runtime.
Okay.
Okay, but in our LWC we don't have that. But as a workaround, what we have is we have render method of lifecycle hook. What it does is it returns a template.
Mhm.
So we can use that method if you wanted to have
Yeah.
the runtime.
Yes. Like basically render we use not like if we have two templates to render conditionally, like if you want to show this template, then another one, like for sign in and sign up templates, we can render through
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
No?
and the reason is like if you use FLs, what it does, even if you are using Aura, if it try to
Mm-hmm.
render your child component and you get the error, and
Okay.
if you are using renderer to render the different components, then it only renders the components when the condition is true.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's about renderer. So what are the different ways to call a method from one like from our LWC to our Apex class?
We can use wire. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we can also call methods imperatively through wire. If we are using, then we have to you keep Aura enabled in the Apex class, and then we can refer that in the LWC. And also cacheable is equal to true. We need, if we want don't want if we want that data, or like if memory should be cleared after it just improves the performance. If we are fetching the records, list of records, in that case cacheable is equal to true can be kept, and then we are importing that in the lightning web component, uh, that Apex class. And
Mm-hmm.
when in the case of imperatively, if you are calling, then we have to run a promise on that class,
Okay,
on that method.
so can we run the promise in wire in case of wire method as well?
Yes, it can be.
Okay, yeah, correct, we can. So when this wire method does execute,
When does wire method execute?
yeah.
Wire runs basically on like it is based on Lightning data services. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever we refresh, in that case, wire automatically runs and it fetches the latest values and all.
Okay, so can I call a method wire method from a button click?
From the button click. Um, yes.
How?
Mm, no, we can't. I think so. We can't, because
Okay.
wire just runs in the, like when we just refresh. In that case, it automatically fetches the values from the record from the Salesforce. So I don't know like how we can do. Maybe through if we keep something in promises. I don't know exactly like through that procedure we can do or not.
Mm-hmm. So basically, there is no direct way to do that. Okay,
Mhm.
but there is one indirect way, or we can say that as a workaround. So if you
Mhm.
have noticed, if we are binding any parameter inside a wire method, okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then we are changing the parameter, wire method automatically calls.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Mhm.
if we can do something similar where we are binding a method to the wire method, we are binding a variable, and on the button click we are changing the value for that variable, that will trigger the call to Apex.
Okay.
Okay,
So
uh,
nothing to do with the reactive parameters of wire in that case.
nothing, because now all
Okay.
the parameters are reactive, um,
Okay.
like leaving few of them like objects of objects or arrays of arrays. Okay,
Okay. Mhm.
so that's about that LWC and Aura. Okay, um yep, I think I'm done. You have anything else for me?